So where did the idea of the talk, doing the Stanley talk, come from?
This year is 20 years since he died, and I think it was that, really. And throughout the lockdowns, I was thinking about perhaps doing something like that. This is the perfect venue. And really, it's a good winter occupation just to go through sketchbooks, of which there are 28, and to really catalogue the maritime paintings and drawings and get them together. So it was a kind of audit, really, of that side of his work, which needed to be done, I think.
Stanley's your father. When you were growing up, do you remember him always doing watercolours and painting?
Yes, he trained as a graphic designer before the war and after the war. But really, the watercolour painting just took over, and that was what he did. In terms of historic local lifeboat rescues, naval ships, predominantly, though, the fishing and the history of Deal and Walmer beaches, which was where he grew up. And after the war, he just wanted to get back to Kent and observe it, live in it, look at it, and paint from it. So yes, that was quite an obsession, but then I think that's how it should be.
Yeah. Roughly of a total, because you, I hope you don't mind what I'm saying, you do live with the watercolours. Roughly how many are there?
Oh, hundreds. Hundreds of watercolours, and a lot were sold in exhibitions, but still he kept going with it and produced them. And he painted right up until his death, when he was quite poorly and couldn't even manage to do up his shirt buttons, but could paint with a very fine sable brush in detail something on the side of a boat.
Do you remember what his process of it was? I mean, was he a fast worker or?
Fast when it came to on-the-spot sketching and recording, because often he would look at the vessels going through the channel, through the downs, and would be on his bike and would do a swift sketch and then cycle and do another swift sketch of the same vessel. So there was a lot of that. He would map things out, square drawings up, make copious notes on the side of sketches, which is evident in the sketchbooks. So there's a lot of process before you reach the final piece, the final watercolour. So the trick is to try and capture the energy or the serenity of the original observational drawings and sketches in a final painting. That's always a challenge for an artist, I think. But he knew the shape of boats in a way that I've never seen any other artist, local or even national. This kind of traditional wooden clinker-built boat structure, it was in his blood. He could just do it with one sweep of his wrist.
I know it's a famous thing people always say, but it makes it look very easy. It's very smooth.
But a lot of hard work and observation behind it. I mean, the top right one, as you look at it, those boats were right in front of the Time Ball Tower. They're not there anymore, but you've got the Lady Irene, the Carefree, the Teddy Bear, Golden Spray. Lovely, lovely titles for boats.
So did the boats go up right onto the shoreline?
Not on the promenade, but they were on the beach there. And very often, before the seawall was improved, the boats would be pushed right up onto the promenade if there'd been an easterly gale or a southwesterly gale, and they would be pushed up onto, and lots of the shingle as well. I mean, the painting beneath that is a historical painting of the beach, the other side of the Royal Hotel, looking north to Seagirt, which was the last remaining building actually on the beach. And that is an imaginary painting from 1932, approximately. So Stanley would have been 12, but in his adult life he was looking back at how the beach was and the boats that were on the beach at that time. You can see some bathing machines in the back of that, in the middle distance. They are bathing machines.
I hadn't thought of it like that. So for me, when I look at them, I find them very melancholic. But I suppose they are also, that one in particular is melancholic for him.
It's nostalgic, isn't it?
Nostalgic,
yes,
yeah.
It is. Because the beach has changed and it was another life. And if it weren't for images and photographs of how the beach was, it would be something that we'd lose. But there's a great aesthetic in clinker-built boats. How they catch the light, how they move into the sea. He had quite a good relationship with inanimate objects, really. And boats were at the top of that list.
If I'm honest, I didn't know that. Clinker-built boat.
Clinker-built boats.
I didn't know that's what they were called.
Yeah, just the timbers, which would have to be steamed to take on that gentle curve. And they're traditional boats, traditional to this locality, many of them. And the one above me is obviously looking to the south, up to Kingstown, and the Lifeboat house, and some boats ready with sails to be launched, and that beautiful green of the central boat there, which is so lovely. It was painted on the spot in an early morning light, so it's capturing the light coming up from the channel. He'd go up very early with a flask of coffee and map them out and really try and capture that.
Really?
Yes.
That morning light.
Yeah.
So the watercolours were painted, a lot of them were painted on site?
Some were, and sometimes he'd take them back, the drawings, and build from that. And the one beneath is a very busy scene with fiberglass boats, modern fiberglass boats, and all that sort of busyness of the fishing and the gathering of the boats on the beach.
It's vibrant, isn't it? They're full of life. That one.
And the little figures are quite expressive, I think. The activities.
Well, real personality.
The history of the Deal boatman is something else. I mean, those characters, absolutely fascinating.
Was he a boat person himself?
No, his great uncle was the first salaried full-time employee of the RNLI as an engineer. So the sea was definitely in his family, and he was a sea scout before the war, so he learnt to sail and row, and then when the war came he was called up in the Navy, as I said, so the sea was always a very major part of his life. But he went to art college in his teens, first at Folkestone Art School and then Canterbury Art School after the war. So really, and in the war, he was a writer. He was in the writers' branch of the Navy, and he served in the northern convoys, the Mediterranean, and off Normandy too.
The watercolours themselves, they're obviously, they're emotional and personal to yourself. So when you did the talk and they looked so good here and people asked about them, I understand you wouldn't necessarily want to part ways with them. So we had to, we chatted about how we could present them to an audience without you having to give up the original. That
process was the gallery's idea, although I must admit I've thought about it before, because as much as the collection is important to keep together. At the same time, any artist wants to share what they've done, and I want to do that and keep it alive. So the suggestion was that perhaps we could make some giclée prints from the watercolours, and this is just a start. We found a company that makes marvellous prints and who were very much in tune with the watercolours and very sensitive to what they mean, both personally and in terms of the local community, I think, and beyond as well. And the process of discussing what kind of paper, how they'd be presented, how they would work best in the gallery with the lighting and the setting and so on.
And we didn't want to make too many of them either.
No, that's right. I mean, this is a selection, and they are limited editions because they are precious. And having worked with Linden Hall Studio over many years now, both from the exhibition point of view, from tuition and giving talks, it's the ideal place for them to live, and as an outlet. I'm confident that it fulfills any concerns I might have about where they might go and how they might continue to live in the minds of people and in the future of how we live in this beautiful coastal town. So,
what do you think Stanley would think about doing this?
He would be shy about it, but I think he would be pleased. He would rather hand it over to me than be the focus of attention, really. But yes, he would be pleased, and I think he would be surprised at how much interest. I mean, there always has been interest in his exhibitions, but he wouldn't have understood what the technology can do. And he would have been amazed at how the technology can enhance any artist's technique when you analyse it.
What did you think about the process of when we went over to have a look at it, and then you saw what had cut the print that had come out?
Oh, fantastic!
It's incredible,
Absolutely.
Isn't
it? You know, the precision of the colour matching is just extraordinary, and I think a lot of time, you know, the professional printers who are dealing with it, an awful lot of time had been spent on that preliminary process of matching up and getting it just right. That's where the work is, and that's where the intensity of perfection, really, I would say, is. So yeah, marvellous.
They have come out amazingly well, and we've printed these for and framed these for. I believe they're the size.
Their actual size.
Actual size.
Yes.
I think that makes them really, really
Yes.
special.
And I think the moulding, the framing is perfect as well, because it is contemporary. I think it matches the environment that they're going to be shown in, but also they enhance the actual image. They don't try and take over. It's not heavy moulding, and it would fit in most surroundings, I think. It's a really good choice. And that's down to the printers as well. They have spent a long time getting it just right.
At the gallery, we've always wanted to have... I think one thing that's very nice about the gallery is that it's in an important location. I think the town of Deal is very important for why it works. And I've always been aware or wanted to have something that on show which is directly correlates with the town. And as I'm sure you can imagine, we get sent a lot of paintings and drawings of Deal seafront and boats and the pier and things like that. And I've never felt they were quite right, but there is something about Stanley's work, which they're very special, and it's the perfect thing we've been looking for, that is traditional deal but presented in a contemporary way. I think they have a nostalgia to them. The way they're put together is beautiful. But I just wondered, it's probably a difficult question for you to answer, what do you think makes them so special compared to like a lot of people paint the seafront?
Well, I think with watercolour, you only have one shot at it. With oil painting or with acrylic techniques, you can go back over it. And that's the beauty of those mediums, because you can build and build. But with watercolour, you've got to maintain that translucency that comes through from the white paper. And so you've got to be sure of what you're doing, and you've got to have a lot of preparation in order to do that. And so I think watercolour is the most gentle and modest, Stanley was a modest man, of kinds of paintings, of techniques of painting, because it is so fragile and it is so delicate. But if you get it right, and I think he did get it right, there's a strength and an elegance in it. I mean, some of his paintings, the Lifeboat rescues, for instance, are very dramatic and strong and quite romantic. Others are tranquil or busy, all sorts of different moods. But essentially, I think there's a timeless quality about them, and I think that's why they sort of transcend a lot of other paintings that try to capture what is so difficult to capture. But it's a bit of magic, isn't it? It's a lot of technique and a lot of practice and a lot of looking, more than anything else, really. A lot of looking and observation. From a time where things were slower, where we weren't living at such a pace, there was a different kind of momentum to life. And I think that brings with it a sort of depth and something, as I say, which makes even the historical scene, like the one behind me, seem in the moment. I mean, with any painting, you have a focal point, a focus of attention, and people see those focuses as a personal thing. And you find the focus. In the case of that painting, it is definitely the green boat. And then your eye goes in a circular movement, and then it moves backwards and forwards, but it always comes back to that beautiful elegance, I think. So for me, and the quality of the early morning light, the quiet, just the sound of Stanley walking on the shingle and sitting down and working, just trying to capture that from another time, but it's still like that in the mornings.
Yeah.
On a spring morning or a sunny morning, that's still there. That doesn't change.
I think it's nice for me, and I hope what people take from them is, when I walk back from doing this later, I'm looking forward to going and have a good look.
Yeah.
They make you want to look at the environment and respond to what's around you.
Makes you want to reconnect and find those reference points for you, for whoever. It does actually create that opportunity, I think.